In today's world, the American dream is almost dead, non-existent, as if it were only a thing of fiction. But not too long ago, people in America or immigrating to America could easily get jobs, become financially stable, own homes, own cars, and start a family whilst only being a member of the middle working class. That is the American dream. However, decades of negligence, stagnation, and economic recession have led the American dream to become nothing more than wishful thinking. Today, I'll be exploring the history, success, and decline of the American dream and potentially a way to restore it. For as long as anybody can remember, the United States has always been referred to as the land of opportunities. The very Declaration of Independence states that all men are created equal with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A simple ethos with a simple message. If you work hard and remain earnest, you're just as likely to be successful as anyone else. But as you're about to find out over the next couple of minutes, the American dream ideal has faded into obscurity due to several crucial underlying issues. The first of which has to be the fall of the American oil industry. The United States has long since been a top 3 producer of global crude oil alongside Russia and Saudi Arabia. Goes without saying, it compromises a major sector of the US economy. However, in recent decades, the American oil producing industry has been swinging back and forth like a pendulum, leading to periods of exceedingly good production and periods of desperately poor production. High highs and low lows, basically. This destabilization would be the result of 3 key things: the declining productivity of oil wells, the rising costs of oil field services, and the conservative investment strategy of producers. All in all, when you factor in the shift away from oil into greener fuels, the oil industry is on life support and has been for some time. But you're probably wondering what any of this has to do with the American dream. Well, it's simple. The US oil industry is quite positively its largest. It provided countless employment opportunities for the exploration, production, processing, transportation, and marketing of oil or oil-based products. So naturally, a fall for the oil industry would demand a rise in the unemployment rates, which means there's less of that American dream to go around. Not to mention, a struggling oil industry negatively impacts the economy and leads to increased cost of living, which for the working man with no job security is pretty much a slap in the face. But the failing oil industry isn't the only factor that's destroying the American dream. The abandonment of the gold standard in the 70s also played a crucial role in alienating the working class couple. What is the gold standard, you ask? Well, it is a monetary system where a nation's currency has a direct and fixed value relative to gold. What that simply means is that how much gold a particular currency could buy is the actual value of that currency. Many nations in the world use the gold standard, and prior to the 70s, so did the US. After the gold standard was abolished in the 1970s, America faced a new wave of all sorts of problems stemming from inflation, one of which would be the rampant and ever-increasing drug abuse problem. The fentanyl crisis is somewhat of a modern-day disaster. In the last 10 years alone, the overdose deaths in the US relating to fentanyl abuse have more than quadrupled, stacking up to nearly 90,000 people. The substance is about 50 times stronger than heroin and is especially a problem in states like California, DC, Florida, and cities like Philadelphia, Kensington to be exact. What's most worrying about all that is the fact that it's precisely the same demographic of people who should be part of the thriving middle class who are ending up in coffins. Perhaps they chased the American dream the only way they knew how and just never woke up from it. Another misery brought up by the end of the gold standard would be a rapid increase in homelessness. Remember at the start of the video when I mentioned a working middle class man could comfortably own a home? Well, with the removal of the gold standard and basically no filter against inflation, housing prices rose through the roof and sent many Americans onto the streets. That, combined with the surge in immigration and unemployment, led to a full-blown catastrophe even in recent times. The Department of Housing and Urban Development recorded over 582,000 homeless Americans in 2022. It remains till this very day a figure that keeps going up. You can learn all about crisis in a separate video on this channel. The final nail in the coffin from the gold standard abandonment involves credit card debt. Running a capitalist machine like the US requires an equally rapid consumer market, which, since the working man can't keep up with the rising cost of living, naturally ends up neck deep in debt. as at mid-2023, the New York Fed's quarterly household debt and credit survey reported that total consumer debt stands at a crippling $17 trillion, a living nightmare rather than an American dream. If you want to know more about the credit card debt, then you should check out my video, How Americans Are Stalling the Recession, where we go in depth on the topic. Now, you know what's ironic? After the move to abolish the gold standard, thereby inflating the market, the cost of locally manufacturing products in America inflated as well, providing a serious headache for the government. They had been so concerned with printing more money and being able to be more proactive in the global market that they failed to realize what the inflation would mean for their local industries. The cost of manufacturing materials went up, the cost of labor went up, and the demand for products went up as well. So, the government had a choice to make, one that could help the American dream or kill it faster. In response to rising production prices, they decided to start outsourcing manufacturing jobs to places that were cheaper to produce than in the US. That decision ultimately narrowed the working industry and led to immigration overload on certain states where jobs are still available, with the most recent being the New York immigration crisis. In less than a year, New York has seen over 100,000 new immigrants pour into the city, ironically hoping to fulfill their American dream. But all it's led to is serious strains on the state's resources and a surge in unemployment and homelessness. And due to fears that their state could get run over as well, Florida passed a controversial SB 17 to 18 bill, which restricts people who are undocumented from traveling into state lines. You could face serious punishment for knowingly traveling into Florida with a person who's undocumented. Whether it be a family member, a worker, or just anyone without the right documents, you would be classified as a smuggler. And protective laws like this isn't about to improve the status of the American dream. Most farmers, small-scale agricultural workers, truck drivers, and construction workers are likely to be undocumented. As a result, they actively fear accepting any jobs that would require them to travel into Florida in order to avoid serious legal issues. This could potentially lead to even further economic strains, as the importance of these workers can't be understated. However, if you're enjoying the video so far, let us know in the comments what your 2 cents are about the American dream and the direction it's currently heading in. Well, you might be wondering, what can the government do to reinstall the American dream as a belief in its people? Unemployment is a very serious issue. When the coronavirus pandemic hit in 2020, about 10 million Americans were out of a job within 2 weeks, which had adverse effects on the economy and, more pressingly, the working class. Not to mention, if unemployment is a serious problem, then it can easily lead to increased calls for restriction on immigration, which is a hot topic you can learn all about on this channel. The government can enact a wide variety of policies and programs to help breathe new life into the American dream. For one thing, it could implement fiscal policies like cutting taxes or increasing government spending, which in turn would increase disposable income for higher consumption, leading to an increase in aggregate demand (AD). A higher AD means a higher GDP, which would naturally create more jobs available to the working class. The government could also implement monetary policies like cutting interest rates for loans. The lower interest rates will decrease the cost of borrowing and encourage people to invest and spend. This theoretically could increase the aggregate demand, which would drive up the GDP and create more job opportunities. Monetary policies could also reduce exchange rates and make exports more competitive, which would absolutely nourish the economy and benefit more people than the fat cats at the top of the corporate ladder. Outside of that, the government can also introduce geographic subsidies to motivate businesses to set up shop at depressed areas, and they could implement job and skill training more aggressively, which would not only improve unemployment. All in all, ever since the pandemic subsided, however, unemployment rate has been swinging between 3.4 and 3.7%, going up or down with different seasons or states. The American dream may have declined dramatically due to the government falling out of touch with its working class and making decisions without the careful consideration of their interest in mind. But all it takes to return the American dream status is a little faith, some government accountability, and a lot of hard work. Exactly what the American dream was all about to begin with.